Our Story Production presents The Road to Our Story, spotlighting an in-depth look at many of The Road to Our Story magazine's featured articles. So get ready, for you're about to travel on The Road to Our Story.
Hello, I'm Jason Howland, and welcome to Speaking of Health, a place to help you learn how to live a longer and healthier life. Insomnia, sleepwalking, narcolepsy, snoring. They're all different types of sleep disorders, which can affect your overall health and quality of life. But with accurate diagnosis, doctors can effectively treat many of these problems. Our guests today on Speaking of Health are Dr. Umesh Vyas, Medical Director of Mayo Clinic Health System Sleep Medicine Department in Southwest Minnesota, and Gary Marquardt. He is a polysomnographic technologist and regional manager of that same department. Gentlemen, thank you both for joining us on Speaking of Health.
Thank you very much.
Well, Dr. Vyas, could you first begin by explaining what constitutes a sleep disorder and what are some of the common ones that people have probably heard of?
Thank you, Jason. This is a very good question. Sleep disorders are very common. We spend our 1/3 of life in a sleep. And data supports that 1/3 of US population suffers from one or more sleep disorders in their life. Sleep disorders are very important because it affects your quality of life. And there are many sleep disorders very common, such as insomnia, obstructive sleep apnea, periodic limb movement disorder, restless leg syndrome, and they can affect not only daytime your quality of life, but they can also impact on your medical other conditions like obstructive sleep apnea. If you don't treat, there is a risk for worsening of blood pressure, obesity, diabetes, cardiac conditions such as ischemic heart diseases, cardiac arrhythmias, stroke. So diagnosing and treating them correctly is very important.
And also, just being sleepy during the day can affect a lot of people's quality of life, too.
Oh, absolutely. It can affect your productivity, it can affect your relationship, it can cause drowsy driving, and it can be dangerous for yourself and for someone else on the road.
Well, what is the best way to diagnose a sleep disorder?
The sleep disorders require, first of all, review of questionnaires, the sleep questionnaires. And any patient who comes to our sleep center, we go through those 7 to 8 pages sleep questionnaires where we have many questions which basically gives us preliminary information to consider whether this patient has some sleep disorder or not.
What are some examples of those questions that you're talking about?
Well, it starts from like a patient name, age, sex, their current occupation, what is their chief complaint, what they think what is the primary problem going on in sleep. Then it talks about what is the time for their to go to bed, how soon they fall asleep, what time they wake up in the morning, how difficult it is for them to wake up in the morning, if they wake up in the middle of their sleep, if they wake up, then for how long they are awake in the middle of sleep, do they snore, has anyone witnessed they are kicking leg in the sleep or they stop breathing. Then some of the symptoms like leg kicking or they have some sleep hygiene issues, whether they are watching TV while they are in the bed. And there is one scale called Epworth Sleepiness Scale score, which basically enumerates the 8 category to know how much they are sleepy or what is the likelihood for them to fall asleep in those day-to-day circumstances, like while you are sitting and talking or while you are sitting and reading or while you are waiting in a public place, something like that. The point I'm trying to make is that first we let patient go through those questionnaires. During the first consultation, we go through them very thoroughly, try to understand what is going on and what needs to be done. After comprehensive evaluation, we do focused physical examination. Patient may need some laboratory workup or sleep study. And that's where basically a patient comes in a sleep center, they go through the polysomnogram, we call it polysomnogram, and we collect lots of data. The patient sleeps in a sleep center for 7 to 8 hours. And next day morning, all those data are reviewed by Gary and other senior technologists. And once they are scored, then those sleep studies, they come to us and we review them, we diagnose, and then we discuss about the treatment options.
So based on the questionnaire, the physical exam, and then the sleep study, you can usually narrow down what exactly is occurring with the patient.
Yes, in most circumstances, by that time, we have a pretty much a diagnosis.
Well, Gary, you are the regional manager for the Department of Sleep Medicine at Mayo Clinic Health System. Tell us a little bit more about what Dr. Villas is talking about and what happens in a sleep lab.
Sure. Well, generally the patients arrive in the evening between 7 and 8 o'clock at night, and they'll be met by their technologist. It's going to set them up with all the electrodes. Some of the electrodes that they'll be putting on are electrodes to monitor brain waves. There's about 21 different little gold cup electrodes that monitor different parts of the brain and tell us what stages of sleep they're in. Many people don't realize that you go through about 4 stages of sleep at night. You have your stage 1, which is your just relaxing stage. Your stage 2, which is your stage where your body's kind of recouping itself. And stage 3 is where it's really getting the job done as far as rebuilding itself. And then you have REM sleep, which is your dream sleep, which most people say they don't ever remember, or some people remember too much. So those are what the brainwaves are doing for us. The eye electrodes are monitoring for eye muscle movement. It kind of tells us when you're in the REM sleep. Your eyes move very rapidly in REM sleep. So it's something we watch very closely to tell us when you are in your dream sleep. We also monitor the breathing through the mouth and through the nose. There's two little sensors that will monitor the air coming out of your mouth and the nose, just to make sure that you don't have that stop breathing part where you have the apnea and so on. We also have bands that go around the abdomen and the chest, and it just monitors your respiratory rate and monitors the rate that you're breathing, so we can see that your lungs and your abdomen are in sync with each other. And we do monitor leg electrodes for some leg movement, leg jerks, such as that.
It sounds like a lot of apparatus.
It is. It is.
Yes.
So
yes.
how do you get the question from patients, how do you expect me to have a good night's sleep if I have all these things on my body?
We get that question a lot, Jason. Mm-hmm. And basically what we tell them is it's going to be one of the easiest tests you're ever going to do medically. And if you have issues sleeping in a hotel room or anything, you should talk to your physician first. And a lot of times they can prescribe a one-time dose of a sleep aid for that night. Mm-hmm. So.
And in the sleep center, it's a bedroom.
It
right?
is. It is.
It's pretty much a good suite with a good quality bed and flat screen TV and all that stuff. And we try our best to make patient most comfortable so that they can relax and they can fall asleep. Because if they don't fall asleep, then next day morning, certainly I have a difficulty and they have a difficulty to score, and it's difficult to give them a diagnosis.
Now, if we're talking about a sleep disorder like insomnia, where a patient can't fall asleep, how do you monitor that if they don't ever actually fall asleep?
That's a very good question. First of all, if someone has a truly insomnia, that does not make an indication for a sleep study. We do not recommend them to come to the sleep study. There are few other diagnoses such as REM behavior disorder that requires a polysomnogram. For insomnia, typically we don't order a sleep study.
So not every sleep disorder requires a sleep study in the sleep lab. It's
Yes.
certain ones, sleep apnea, and
Yes.
some of the others, right?
Like restless leg syndrome does not require a sleep study. It's a clinical diagnosis.
So Gary, do you also videotape people while they're sleeping? And if so, what's the purpose?
We do videotape people while they're sleeping just because we need to see the patient in case they're needing something at night when they're sleeping, or mostly for the physicians to diagnose if they're having some REM behavior disorders, some movement disorders. It helps them really get a good picture of what the patient's doing in sleep at night if they need to review that.
Great.
And exactly, Gary. In fact, sometime like a seizure, patient may come in a clinic and say they don't know in the sleep what they are doing. So for medical legal purpose also, we need to have those documentation that this patient has abnormal behaviors.
Well, Dr. Villas, can you tell us some more about some of the common symptoms which may guide our audience to know if they may benefit from an evaluation? What are some of the common symptoms?
Sure. If somebody has a difficulty in falling asleep, or they fall asleep but they cannot sustain a sleep, they wake up either because of snoring, snorting, having choking sensation, shortness of breath. If they are waking up early in the morning, if a bad partner is not able to sleep because of their leg kicking, that might be an indication. Or bad partner is snoring so loudly that you cannot sleep in the same bedroom, or the family member needs to go to different room, or it can be disturbing. Then in the morning, if they have a difficulty in waking up, if they have some funny, uncomfortable leg sensations, especially in the evening hours, just before going to bed, all these can be sign of having some sleep disorder, or their sleep cycle is totally off. Like 5 o'clock in the evening, they become very sleepy and wake up 1 o'clock. That's a kind of an indication for having a circadian rhythm sleep disorder. So there are many sleep disorder. And another thing is if they do some abnormal behavior in the sleep, like sleepwalking, or a child wakes up in the middle of sleep crying, not remembering anything next day morning, that might be an indication for sleep terror. Or come next day morning, or come for the evaluation with the history of patient is getting violent in the sleep. So these all the symptoms indicate that they may have some sleep disorder.
Do you have some patients that come to you and say, oh, I sleep great every night, but for some reason I'm tired all the time, when they have really probably no idea what's going on when they're sleeping?
Yes, this is very common to hear, because patients themselves, they don't know what they are doing in a sleep, and that's a good indication for us to explore and have a sleep study. And in fact, in these circumstances, even interviewing bad partner is very valuable, because bad partner may know that my husband snores, or he is very restless all night long, something like that.
Well, so someone's had a sleep study, or you've evaluated and diagnosed someone with a sleep disorder. What's next? How do you treat someone with a sleep disorder? And I guess it probably varies on the sleep disorder.
Yes, it depends on the type of the sleep disorder. There are many sleep disorders. They are normal variant. They don't require any treatment. And I can give you an example, like somebody needs only 5 hours of sleep. This is called normal variant short sleeper. This becomes a problem when they get married and wife says, oh, by the way, you sleep only 5 hours. Everybody needs 8 hours of sleep. How you have some problem. And they bring to us, and this is a normal variant. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, there are some disorders, they require some medication management, such as restless leg syndrome, or periodic limb movement disorder, or sleepwalking, REM behavior disorder. Versus there are other sleep disorders such as obstructive sleep apnea, which requires a CPAP treatment, which is basically it's an equipment which works as a pneumatic splint. It gives you a pressure in your throat to keep your upper airway open so that you don't snore and you don't stop breathing while you are in a sleep.
Great. Well, unfortunately, we are all out of time. I know there's much more we could delve into when it comes to sleep disorders, but I'd like to thank our guests today, Dr. Umesh Vyas and Gary Marquardt from Mayo Clinic Health System.
Thank you very
Thanks for
much.
joining us.
Glad to be here.
Have a great day, everyone, and be healthy.
There you have it, folks. One of the favorite stories ripped from the pages of The Road to Our Story magazine. Let's have a look at another.
Our Story Productions presents the Cocklebur Morning Show, where we weed out the big stories from throughout Sweet Swine County with Bobby Ray and Sally Sue.
Thank you, and welcome to the Cocklebur Morning Show, where we weed out the big stories throughout Sweet Swine County and beyond. Once again, I'm Cousin Jeff, filling in for Bobby Ray with my co-host, once again, Prairie Ann. Prairie Ann, I'm excited to be working with you again. This is great.
I'm so excited to be here again, Jeff. And you know what? Anytime that Sally Sue has to go on a silly assignment, I'd be glad to fill in. Giddy up. This has been so much fun.
Well, I enjoy
You have all
work-
those doctors on. And, ooh, it's so much fun.
I enjoy working with you, and you know what? We might take over this show someday.
I think we should.
But for now, let's just get started.
Okay, let's get started. What are we going to do first?
Now,
What's going on today?
Last time when we were together,
Yeah?
we didn't do a Bobby Ray's Weekend Adventure. It
I
made Bobby
know.
Ray a little bit distressed.
Oh, that silly Bobby Ray. What does he know anyway? We're in charge.
That's
It's
right,
our
we're
show.
in charge.
When
So I'm
we're
going to make
here,
a
it's our show.
I'm going to make a corporate decision.
Okay.
Why don't you read another one of those fan mails from your what's your show?
The emails from Ladies Are You Listening? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yay, let's do
read
that.
one of those. Read one of those
Okay.
again. Those were good.
That'd be wonderful, Jeff. Let's have a ladies and gentlemen get ready because it's time for
Ladies, are you listening?
this fan email says, "Ladies, I love your show." Of course, she's talking about the women of Sweet Swine County. Anyway, ladies, I want to drop you a line to let you know about an event.
Ladies.
Ladies, yeah.
Oh, it's to you.
To us ladies, the women of Sweet Swine.
I'm sorry,
Giddy up.
Marianne, go ahead.
That's all right. That's all right. You're fine. I wanted to drop you a line to let you know about an event I'm going to attend. The Quilt Minnesota Shop Hop 2011, Friday, July 29th through Sunday, August 14th. Quilt shops throughout the state of Minnesota participate in the Shop Hop, and Prairie Quilting is one of 9 shops which make up the southwest section. Throughout the state of Minnesota, everyone will receive a free charm square at each shop they visit, and also get a free pattern for a 9-inch finished block. Visit each shop in the southwest section and you'll receive a free fabric wrap consisting of 18 third-yard cuts. Wow! I know you don't know anything about quilting, Jeff, but this is fabulous.
Really?
Exciting prizes, including a cruise for 2 to Alaska.
Wow.
Thought you should know a fan. See the wonderful letters we get? They're
I'll tell
so
you what, that's an
informative,
incredible
and
letter.
you know they want to share everything with us.
And where do they? What does that say there again?
Exciting prizes include a cruise for 2 to Alaska.
I might take up quilting.
I think you should. It's fun. It's a lot of fun.
Just for that prize would be enough reason.
Exactly.
To take a part of that.
Well, there you have it, Jeff. Another fan email that asks,
Ladies, are you listening?
Now, what do you say we bring out our guest?
that would be awesome.
You can have the honors.
Thank you, Jeff. Ladies and gentlemen, from Madison, Minnesota, Dr. Jeff Stamp. Yay!
Welcome, Jeff. Welcome. Glad you're here.
Well, thanks for having me.
Rumor at the water fountain is that Matt, you're a mad scientist.
Well,
Could
somebody's
this be true?
somebody's got to do it.
And a
And
doctor.
by the way, I appreciate the nice, warm introduction of the doctor. You know, my dad, who is a real estate agent in Madison, Minnesota for the Klein Bank, always introduces me as his son, the doctor who can't save anybody. So I'm glad for the upgrade.
So, as a mad scientist, tell us exactly what you do.
Well, my job is to create the future. So when you go to the store and you buy things that you decide that you like, my job is to try to figure out what you're going to like next and then figure out how to make it so that it's already there waiting for you so that you just go, wow, I always wanted to have one of those. Now it's there. And I work in the food industry, so I work in the food sector, and you've probably had one of two of my products.
Well, let's hear it. What are your products?
I was the inventor of the Baked Lay's potato chips.
Wow.
So if you've eaten the baked
We
chips,
have.
We have.
Have you,
Yes,
Perry
we
Ann?
have. I have. Giddy up.
Well, there you go.
and it's not just taking a potato and slicing it up and baking it in your oven, because if you just take a potato and you try to copy my product and slice it up real thin and put it in your oven at 350 for 20 minutes, that's a kind of a recipe you can try at home. You'll make
won't work?
something that'll actually replace boot leather. That's about what it's going to do.
I'm sure of that.
So it's like secret. You won't tell us what
No,
the
I'll
invention
tell
is?
you. It's
You're
like
telling-
science, but it's interesting because what you have to do is you have to take the starch out of the potato and you have to make a dough and you have to cook it a special way. Then you have to roll it out, you have to cut it, and you have to do some, well, magic, which is why they call us mad scientists. But at the end of the day, you make that crispy product that everybody wants. And our job is to make it look effortless. So you just open the bag, you eat the product and go, wow, I want more.
yeah.
Awesome.
I mean, think about it. Everything you wear, drive, buy, somebody had to invent it. And I just, one of those guys.
So did you have an easy button?
Yes. We come preloaded with an easy button. I think the first
It
thing you
sounds
got to
like you
have,
do. I mean, you
think
make
the
it
first
sound
thing you
like,
got to have as a scientist is you got to have the sense of, I can. You got to have that curiosity. Like, I love it when people would always come up to me at work and go, that's impossible. You can't do that. And I'll go, really? That's the project I want. Yeah.
So let me ask you, how does a small town boy become
Farm boy.
farm boy?
Farm boy.
I
Right?
think
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
the magic. I think when
is
you're,
the magic.
I grew up 10 miles from town. Okay, I grew up a mile away from the nearest people. You know, you're out there all by yourself, and you spend.
That's what I was going to say, Dr. Jeff. Don't you think it's like out of sheer boredom? You're out of school for the whole summer, and you have to think of something to do.
Boredom? Are you kidding me? Those moments were the greatest because
That's what I mean. because
imagine
you couldn't get to town, so
we
it's like,
had-
okay, let's think of something we could do. Hypnotize the chickens.
Oh, we used to
You
have
probably
all
get
kinds
tired
of
of
parties
that.
with the farm animals. But our
Yes,
favorite thing was to
exactly.
take just 3 objects. My sister and I used to have a little game. 3 objects. Oatmeal box, Band-Aid box, and some buttons. Now we used to make a game out of it. We used to take just random things, a rock, a stick, and a brick, and make a game out of it. I think what's happened with children today is they've lost that sense of discovery about how to play with just anything. You know, how do you take a beautiful pig vase, a coffee cup, and maybe your hat, and we could create a game that would be fun to play, and we could spend hours just trying to invent new things. And I think that's where it all starts, because as you look past the fence posts, you have to be able to say, I'm here, nothing I can do about it. So I could have whined about being out in the country, but to me it was an enjoyable, fun place. And I learned more on the farm than I ever did about business at the university.
So tell us what you learned more of what you learned on the farm.
I had a lot of both of my sets of my grandparents were on the farm. And in the summertime, you spend time with your grandparents. And so you learn a lot from that sage wisdom. And the first thing that my grandfather, whenever he saw us just standing around doing nothing, he had one sterling phrase that he always used to say. He used to say, winter's coming. And that was his way of saying, you better find something to do, because if the snow fence isn't up when it starts to snow, you're in trouble. And for a lot of us at work, we all sit around going, it's not my job, it's somebody else's job. And so we're just waiting around for winter. And so when I talk to my audiences, I always say, you know, it's really important to find a way to keep busy.
So let me ask you, as far as how things have changed, I'm going to put us all in the same bracket. Perry Ann's about 25.
Oh, great.
We're a similar bracket in age. Do you think this will change back, or is it gone forever? When I'm talking about kids with technology, playing the computer games, playing the video games and different things, is there any chance that we could evolve back, or is it gone forever?
Jeff, I love that question. I think if we get past the notion of technology for technology's sake and begin to see that you still have to use your mind to think, what I try to tell my students all the time is, we may be now a small country. I mean, we know that places like India and China are producing more A students than we even have students. So we can't, unless of course we're all going to get busy and have more children, have a national referendum, everybody have 200 children.
Right.
That doesn't make a lot of sense. So what are we going to do? Well, what unites all of us in all of our businesses is we have to be able to make better decisions. So instead of just memorizing a bunch of stuff in school, which is what we all grew up doing, remember? Memorize your alphabet, memorize your multiplication table. If we just teach kids how to be more curious and how to make better decisions, then they'll still be able to be leaders in the next new world as we see it. We don't know what's happening. We now know that 20% of the students that we're teaching right now at the university level are going to take jobs 4 years from now that haven't even been invented yet. That's how fast the world is changing. So we can't be afraid of the future. We have to say, let's go see what it's all about.
Now, you say that you're speaking and going to different lectures and different things. If someone wanted to hear you or come to one of your programs, we might call them programs, how would they do that?
Well, you go on my website. It's Bold Thinking, boldthinking.com. Yep, technology. I actually came off the farm to actually build a website. And you go to boldthinking.com. You can follow where Dr. Jeff is, and you can actually watch me on YouTube and places like that. And I also make a lot of appearances at bookstores. I've written a new children's book about discovery thinking.
Because Did you bring your children's books with you?
Yes, like a good author, I brought my children's book. It's called Red and Slim, One Hot Day. And it's designed to make first readers, kindergartners and first graders, actually read faster so that they actually would want to read a book as opposed to watch it in a video. So we've changed the way you actually invent a book, much like a script. And you all work off of scripts, right? So we wrote it in a storyboard fashion so that kids can actually read faster. As a matter of fact, the entire book is written in one-syllable words so they don't have to get hung up on the hard words, and it makes them more interested in what the story is going to be about. Because most children's books are just theme books. Sky is blue, grass is green. Kids watch videos at 2, 3, 4 years old. What they want are stories. And so as I tell young people when I meet with them, I'm not a professor. I'm a storyteller of knowledge. And hang on for the ride. Because again, unless we're curious and have that passion for learning, we're all going to just roll up like the prairie tumbleweeds, right?
Yeah.
Wonderful. And how do they get the book?
The book is available on Amazon.com, or you can buy it right off my website on boldthinking.com. And it's fun. I love to work with children. We're going to put 15 books in this series. And I like to get the story ideas from the kids, and then we go and craft a creative story around it. And again, whether you're making a potato chip or you're building a story, it's all about what's the next thing around the next corner. And so for me, it's always, what's going to happen next? Much like what goes on with your show. I'm anxious to always see every day, what's next on the Cocklebur Show.
So can you tell us what your next invention
And so do
is?
we. We want to see what's going to happen next on our own show because we don't know what's going to happen. So go ahead, Marianne.
So can you fill us in on your next invention? What are you working on now?
Well, my newest thing is a way to help kids learn better on iPads and other computer devices to make learning online more like what it used to be like. In other words, make it so that it's actually discovery oriented instead of just, oh, Google an answer. You know, my students at the university, if I'm lecturing, I may start a conversation, and while I'm starting it, they're Googling to see if I'm right. You see, the world no longer needs memorization, right? Because we can get information. What I want to do is to try to get people to do what we call intuitive thinking. Guess the answer and then see if you're right. And then use your brains to figure out if that actually is where you want to be.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to have to go, Perry Ann. We're going to have to go to one of his programs as well as get on the website because it sounds very interesting. We want to thank you for being on the Cocklebur Morning Show.
Well, thanks for having me. It's always fun to come out in the country and get some fresh
air. Did you happen to bring one of those books that we could buy from you?
I will actually sign a book for you and give it to you and everybody in the studio audience. I've got a free copy of the book for everybody. Go out in the car, we'll just bring them right in. But yes, I'll be glad to sign the book for you when we're done.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you for being our guest today on the Cocklebur Morning Show. And Perry Ann, once again, thank you for co-hosting with me.
You're welcome,
This
Jeff.
was great
It's been
fun.
a pleasure.
We might have to do this again or maybe even have
It
lunch.
would be fun to do it again. And guess what?
Jeff, sorry, we're
Guess what?
digressing.
I'm available.
They're trying to decide what's next. They're inventing the next show.
We're inventing the next show. That's right. And thank you to our audience for watching the Cocklebur Morning Show, where we weed out the big stories throughout Sweet Swain County and beyond. Bye, everybody.
There you have it, folks. One of the favorite stories ripped from the pages of The Road to Our Story magazine.